Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. Hello and welcome to Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you as always from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. The festive season is concluding, but are the patakas just ready to light up the Lal Street? That's what we're going to talk about. I'm Surbhi Upadhyay. With me as always is Nigel D'Souza, and we have Rima joining in. And I wonder whether she will be ushering in all-time highs today.
Well, indeed, I think that's the big question, right? We're about 409 points away from hitting that all-time high level of 26,277. And I think the GIFT Nifty is suggesting a very solid start, 350 to 400 points. The only question is, now that, Prime Minister Modi is not attending the ASEAN summit. So if, there was so much expectation over the last 2 days about possibly, over, next week, we will get more on that trade deal between India and US. Does that puncture the optimism to some extent?
Well, that's right. I think the journey to all-time highs has started, which is good news as well. And the last 1 year was lackluster, but getting to Diwali, the fatakas definitely went off. And now the sentiment itself is positive. So, Surbhi, I think let's get straight to the action.
Oh, absolutely. It's been about the Diwali diplomacy, the phone call that happened. That's been dominating headlines over the last 24 hours or so. And we'll start actually right there. So, yes, now, whether an in-person meeting happens or not, that remains a bit of a question. But the phone call seems to have gone well. At least that's what Mr. Trump is indicating. Now, this is as per, his own side of the story. We need to see what the MEA says today, if anything at all, if there's an official confirmation or a statement. But Donald Trump saying that, India has agreed to wind down gradually our purchases of Russian oil. In fact, he went on to say, when reporters quizzed him at the White House, he went on to say that by the end of the year, it should pretty much come down, and the reduction could be as much as 40%. Before we do anything else, let's actually hear out that soundbite. This is Donald Trump at the White House discussing his phone conversation with Prime Minister Modi.
India, as you know, has told me they are stop. It's a process. You can't just stop it. But by the end of the year, they'll be down to almost nothing. That's a big thing. There was almost 40% of the oil. India, they've been great. Spoke to Prime Minister Modi yesterday. They've been absolutely great.
So the tone and tenor of that commentary seems to be indicating that there is a thaw. Now, is it the final breakthrough or not? That's what the market needs to understand, and we'll wait for more inputs, like I said, from the Indian side today, if there is any sort of an official statement. Because remember, the last statement that came in didn't say too much. It just spoke about national interest. So we'll wait by. What has also happened in the meantime is that the US administration has increased its sanctions on key Russian oil companies. So both Rosneft as well as Lukoil, the amount of sanctions or the severity of the sanctions has gone up. This has led to a spike in oil prices. So technically, if it was not for this Diwali phone call, this would have been a big negative for India, because oil has jumped with Brent now over $64 a barrel. So we're talking about 3 to 4% kind of a rally coming through in the last 2 trading sessions or so. So that remains a big watch point. Now, on the market action, it was a down day on Wall Street last night. Twin factors playing out. One, there is some sense of trepidation around what happens. Will there be some sort of curbs on export of U.S. software to China? So China, U.S., and the hawkish talk there is a bit of a concern point for Wall Street. And then earnings, and there was a flurry of earnings yesterday, and some big reactions actually. Tesla was down 4%. Tesla has managed to show top-line growth finally after 2 quarters, but the bottom-line growth was not in line with street estimates. So that stock was down in extended trading hours. IBM is down 6%, despite meeting street expectations, because some people are arguing their software revenue is not growing fast enough. Netflix down 10% after earnings as well. In fact, 3/4 of the S&P 500 companies that have reported so far, they've actually beaten estimates. So overall, it's been a good season. But the last couple of numbers that have come in, Wall Street, of course, taking some profits on the back of that. Nothing but much in dollar and yields. It's going to be all about the US CPI data. Remember, we are hardly getting any data because the US government is still in shutdown mode, 22 days and counting. But CPI numbers should come out on Friday, so the market will take its cue from that. But for us, the signs or the hopes of a thaw, coupled with the momentum and the sentiment, the big question is that will we indeed get to those all-time highs? That level is 26,277, and we are barely 400 points away from that. Let's pull up the implied open. As Rima was also pointing out, the GIFT Nifty has been very strong, and the implied open, look at that, almost 400 points up. So will today be the day? Nigel?
Well, that's right. It gets a little tricky. We're going to start off 400 points higher just for the day's trading action. But clearly the direction is upward, and the bulls, they are back in play. And you have a couple of positives that are playing out, right? Hopes with regard to the US-India trade deal. And also earnings season hasn't been that bad, actually, which raises hopes that the second half of the year will be quite good. But the big point is that the FI seem to have pivoted here in India. For the fifth straight session, they bought in the cash market, which is very, very good after selling close to around $18 billion in this calendar year itself. And also in the futures market, that's on index futures, the short positioning has come down from around 94% all the way to around 81%, telling you some part of that short covering has taken place. And this is the power of short covering on full display, because the short contracts are down by close to around 57,000 contracts. And just take a look at the bounce you've seen. In this series itself, we're up more than 1,000 points. And that's the way the markets have moved. So the Nifty moving up, the short positioning coming down. And the clients who are at the opposite end of the spectrum, they had long positioning. Well, as the markets now climb up, we're seeing that those long contracts actually have gradually started coming down. So from around 1.35 lakh contracts, they are down to around 86,000 contracts. So they have been booking some profits as the markets have been trending up. What about the options data? Well, the Nifty PCR, that's come down to around 1.08 or thereabouts. You don't want this to be at elevated levels. So that's almost in the middle of that range of around 0.6 to around 1.6 or thereabouts. So the most active strikes come up for you in the screen. 25,900 call, nearly 20 lakh shares added out there. 26,000 call as well, close to around 16 lakh shares out there. So you're seeing the call writing has moved to elevated levels out there. And you're seeing there is some out of the money call buying as well. On the downside though, that's the first support zone. The 25,500 put continues to remain very, very active. So if you look at a couple of levels, well, till the 20 DMA is holding out, you'll have to say this trend is very much, up and in the northward direction. So that's very, very deep. However, in the near term, going by the options data, you don't want this mark to break on the downside, 25,500 thereabouts, and that beautiful fresh all-time highs. Well, we're on our way to that mark. I think that in the next, maybe in the next, in the October series itself, we could hit that mark. If not, November, we should get there. And what's happened in this series is the Nifty Bank, that's led the way. And with the kind of deals you're hearing about, the flows could continue to remain strong out here and the interest could remain high. So the Nifty Bank will have to play a big role. Moving to stocks that could be in focus, particularly for today's trading session, well, there are hopes that the US-India trade deal could be in the offing. Well, then we'll keep an eye out on stocks that got hit very, very hard. Textile stocks could be in focus, namely maybe Gokul Das as well as Welspun Living. Both these two could potentially be the stocks of the day. So it's a tricky start, but the journey to those fresh all-time highs is well and truly on.
Indeed. So that sums up all the global, the macro cues that we're tackling this morning post-Diwali trade. But the other big one is the unwind in gold and silver that happened over the last 2 days. So gold prices have declined for the third day in a row. Overnight down 2%. On Tuesday, it was down 6%. And even silver, the record high was $54.4 an ounce. And now we're below 49 on silver. There you have. 48.
Just one point, Rima, with this, I look at the Nifty gold ratio. That is, 1 gram of gold and you compare it with the Nifty. That's came down to around 2.1. That's the lower end of the range. Normally, when it comes to these levels, you normally see Nifty outperforms gold. That's what history suggests. At the upper end, it goes to around 4, 4.5 and thereabouts as well. So for the time being, going by that ratio, Nifty gold ratio at around 2.1, risk reward could favor actually equities from here on. Just the technical, study that we have done.
Yeah. Got that.